And welcome back to Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Let that music tone down just a little bit here so I can actually hear myself talk.
Here, I got a button. I got a knob.
All right,
welcome. He has things that he can push.
Yeah, I can do stuff.
Welcome
Your
back.
wish is my command.
I'm going to wish a lot of things from you today's episode, so get
Oh.
ready.
Like stop interrupting you?
Yes, exactly. First off, I just want to say welcome back to draft season. Check out our last couple episodes if you want to make sure you get all the rookie content where we covered quarterbacks. We covered them in 2 episodes. In the next 3 episodes, we've got your running backs for you. Quick shout out to Twitter. We are at BeerFueledFF on there. I believe it is still on the recording if you're watching this on YouTube.
Yes, it is up on the top left of the recording. I had to figure out my directions for a second.
I think you have to do that every single time.
This doesn't work when you don't remember which way an L's supposed to go.
And those of you listening on the podcast, if you prefer video content, as a reminder, we are on YouTube as well. So if you want to see all of us waving at the camera, you can come in and check on us on the YouTube channel, Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Individually, I'm at Nick Sparts. The yikes to my left is Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 P's. That's a reference to my shirt, not my face, I think.
We'll see what happens.
And then repping the Ravens across the table for me, we have Dan Thury.
At Thury BFF, what's going on, guys?
All right. Shall we hit a beer preview, some news, and then get to the main event?
Beer Fuel.
And we've got a bit of an interesting one today. Usually we have something, we've seen collaborations where it'll be 2 breweries collaborating together, but this is a magazine collaborating with an artist who's putting out an album, and then they're collaborating with a brewery to make a beer to go with it.
It's a triple collab.
It's a triple collab, all from different industries. So the magazine is Relix. I don't really know that much about
Or
them.
Relics or something. Depends on how fancy they got.
Kyle Hollingsworth is the artist, and then the brewery is Sweetwater. We've had them on once before. This is their second time on. They're out of Atlanta, Georgia.
I know one of those 3 things.
Yes, I know Sweetwater. That's why I brought them on. So shout out to the 2 people they're doing the collaboration on. I'm going to try to check them out here after the show. The beer itself is called Ground Score. It is an IPA. We haven't had a ton of those on lately, so we wanted to grab one of those.
We just had 2 last week.
All the stouts are starting to blur together, so it doesn't feel like we have that many IPAs.
Yeah. We haven't had any on
Not in a
recently.
while.
Yeah, we had 2 last week.
Listen back to last week's episode to see or
To prove Nick wrong.
to prove Nick wrong,
Or see which 2 they were, if you're interested.
and that is more important.
Yep.
We'll go ahead and give you a full review of Ground Score once we get through the Tier 2 backs here. But first, we have some news for you guys.
I'm not ready.
You're not.
News.
We're going back to the 80s.
All right, and Hopper's album and beer combo drop will be later in 2018.
If I could get somebody to collab a beer with me, that'd be awesome. I'll just homebrew one. I know people.
Brent.
Yeah, Brent and my buddy Steve, and there's people.
All right, for news, this would normally be fully in rumor category, but we're so desperate for positive news that I feel like throwing this one in. Colts coach Frank Reich says Andrew Luck is resumed throwing.
Good news for Colts fans and Andrew Luck owners alike, if he actually is throwing or throwing with any velocity or anything like that. But we'll see when OTAs roll around and what type of reports come out.
So same rule as last year. We need to actually see him go out there and do something.
Yep, wait and see.
Jaguars acquired Cody Kessler from the Browns in exchange for a 2019 7th-round pick. It is conditional.
Makes sense. I guess they needed a better backup than Chad Henne.
And I thought Kessler was used way wrong by Hugh Jackson.
I thought he was too. I thought they either you put Kessler in there and let him go or not, and he was serviceable when he was as serviceable as any Browns quarterback.
As long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, he's kind of a Jag quarterback where he's an okay backup, but he should have been getting more playing time last year, and I don't think they should have thrown. I don't know why he was never even considered to be the starter to the start last year.
It's Hugh Jackson.
I don't either.
I'm trying to figure that shit out.
I forgot that they experimented. Didn't they experiment before Kaiser went in?
No, he was never. It was either
Okay.
going to be Osweiler or Kaiser the whole time.
That's what it was. RG3 was the year before.
Yep.
Or Hogan?
Gotcha.
There's another
Kevin
quarterback.
Hogan. Kevin
I think
Hogan.
they brought Hogan.
There is
in.
a third quarterback there.
Yeah, Hollywood Kevin Hogan.
That's right.
I think they brought him in after they cut Osweiler, though.
I don't care. That's about as much I want to talk about.
Enough
this.
Browns quarterback talk.
Yes, please.
Jets signed running back Thomas Rawls, formerly of the Seahawks.
And you'll get hurt.
Yeah, well, it's at least somewhat interesting.
This backfield's starting to get a little crowded now, though.
This backfield was never good to begin with. At least there's another body there that could take the job that's a dart throw. I mean, you never really had a clear-cut answer.
I mean, I think people were hoping it was Crowell.
Yeah.
It's like a worse, like, Patriots and Eagles situation of last year where, like, yeah, there's 3 names that I know. All 3 of them I have no fucking care in the world about.
4.
Well, 4.
Four.
I just want to call McGuire.
They're just throwing shit at the wall and hoping something sticks at this point.
Yeah, he's probably cheap. He's young. Just see if they got anything.
There's a joke there.
There's definitely a joke there.
A couple jokes there.
There's a couple jokes there.
All right, so after cutting one Wright, the Vikings signed Kendall Wright, formerly of the Bears, to a 1-year contract. So they go from Jarius to Kendall.
Some good depth, though.
I like it.
It's not necessarily great for Treadwell unless he's just... I mean, Kendall Wright was productive last year.
If he's healthy, he can push.
If he's
can push
healthy,
plays.
he can be a wide receiver 3. Not on that team, but most other places.
Yeah, he'll be they'll kick him in the slot when they want to have Thielen run outside.
Yep.
And then I'm assuming when they run Thielen in the slot, that's when they'll have Treadwell come in.
Yeah.
Saints signed Ben Watson, formerly of the Ravens, to a 1-year contract. So I'm expecting Kobe Fleener to go missing any day now.
Yeah.
All the knees are missing. Him and Josh Hill.
Isn't that where Ben Watson had his breakout?
Originally,
is.
yeah.
Originally. So
a couple years ago.
that's worth paying attention to, I guess.
If they don't draft a tight end, especially
Even
Watson's
if
the
they
name.
do, tight ends take a while to develop.
It depends on where. You see a lot of like Gesicki being mocked there.
Yeah.
All that athleticism.
All right, and then just to keep Hopper happy, we do mention Raiders released punter Marquette King.
He'll land someplace.
Apparently, he may land in Minnesota.
That would not be a bad thing.
As soon as he got cut, they were on the phone with his agent and him.
That would not be a bad thing.
Nope.
He's good punter. It was apparently to send a message, so I guess Gruden's not planning on having any fun, etc., etc.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Gruden, for ruining everything.
Well, he was also extremely highly paid
Expensive.
for a punter.
He was,
Yeah.
and they're strapped for cap.
That's because he was a good punter.
He definitely was. I'm not sure he was $3 million worth for a punter, though.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
see.
Shall we get into our top 9 running backs here that make up our first 3 tiers?
Sure.
Free
That was the wrong
Agent
drop.
Phillip.
Why do I even still have that on there?
I don't know.
Tie-in. These are all free agents right now. Ish.
Technically?
Technically they are.
Some of them in the next episode will be undrafted free agents. We're still professionals. Video doesn't matter. How about the right drop now?
Draft preview.
There it is.
Reading is difficult.
It is.
It's kind of hard.
It's a life skill. You got to work on that.
Yeah, and now
Same with talking. I don't know what that's about though.
I've got my notes set on my blind eye, so I've got to like turn my whole body to see this damn thing.
This will go well.
For those of you that didn't know, I'm blind in one eye, or partially. Blind enough to where I can't read out of it.
Good for the listeners to know. Okay, so the way we have this episode set up, the running back set up, we're split this into 3 different episodes. First episode is going to be the kind of consensus top guys we think probably are going to be day 1 or day 2 picks mostly. Maybe 1 or 2 will fall to day 3. Then we've got kind of the second one is going to be all the guys who we think probably go rounds 4 through 7, maybe some fringe UDFA guys who we really like. And then the last episode is going to be just the rest of the names to at least know.
It's the cleanup episode.
The cleanup episode.
The mop-up episode.
Yeah, literally.
And then we'll do the same thing with wide receivers just because there's so many. I think we did 33 running backs and we're doing 43
wide
receivers.
receivers.
If not more,
And,
if someone's like, "Hey, we guys should
Yeah,
watch this guy," he goes,
we
"Fuck."
Because we thought we were done with running backs, and we tweeted out our rankings. And thank you for this, by the way.
Yeah.
Everybody that said, well, what about this guy? Because we found Jordan Wilkins that way.
Yep.
And thank you for that.
Yeah,
And
so
and we'll
I
talk-
had his name written down. I kind of want to shout him out for that.
Yeah.
there was more than one person, though.
Okay.
We're talking about him on the next episode. So
Yeah, I
you can shout
We'll
him out
wait
there.
until next.
I had 2 or
episode.
3 of them mention him to me. But just thank you guys. If you see our rankings and you see somebody missing, ask. Because maybe something that, if it's not a well-known name, it may be something that we just didn't pick up
Yeah.
either from the combine list or from rankings that are anywhere else either. So please let us know and we'll go watch them.
And if anyone wants to be our personal scout who's like, yeah, you have to have all these guys on your list and just wants to chirp in our ear about that, do that too.
that's
Do that
fine.
too.
Yeah, we'll
We're
take
fine.
those.
All right, let's start off with Tier 1. Reminder, these scores are out of 9 for their overall rating. 9 would be a absolute perfect prospect. And we actually have somebody who comes pretty close in our tier 1. He is all by himself, Saquon Barkley.
He's all by himself in this draft as far as the skill positions and how we ranked people.
Yeah, it's him, a decent teardrop,
It's him.
another teardrop, and then the other players.
Yep.
So he comes in at 8.8 overall out of 9. I actually gave him 8.9. It was like, if he was just a bit stronger and a bit better between the tackles, he would have been a 9. So he just barely missed that perfect rating for me.
He's pretty much there.
Yeah, he did. He was incredibly consistent with his touchdowns and his efficiency. His receptions pretty much doubled between last year and this year. He doesn't not do anything well. Actually, for the con section of Saquon Barkley, I had to put a note at the top. I was like, these aren't cons. These are just slightly less elite traits.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like
these are things that he's just good at as opposed to amazing.
because he's got great lateral quickness and speed. He doesn't use his power. For a guy who's 230 pounds, you want him to show that a little bit more. And because he's like AP, where he wants to hit the home run every single hit, he will sometimes miss lanes. Will fight a little too much. Will dance a little too much, and then he'll go down. That's something that you just have to live with. As a coach, you're going to be like, okay, like you can do everything else times a million fine.
Yeah, the only two things I had down for slightly less is that he doesn't run violently. So again, he doesn't use his strength the way that he could, and his agility as a runner is better than his agility in open space, like as a pass catcher.
Yeah,
from what I saw,
I gave him a slight ding on balance and vision, specifically between the tackles. He sometimes struggles in traffic, and he's always looking to bounce it outside,
and that's
where he's more comfortable.
And that's just him. Like that's his style of being an aggressive runner. It's that he wants to hit the home run, and he's not a guy like guys which we'll talk about, or Michel or Chubb, where they're okay with the 3, 4, 5 yards until that lane opens up.
Yep, and Barkley, he's the perfect that's the only thing I think even slightly negative we have to say about him. He's a perfect size speed combo. He's 6 foot, 233, runs a 4.40, and bench 29 reps. There's nothing there to not like about him.
And he may even look faster on tape.
There's not a back with his mold like that.
No, I
like there hasn't been a guy who has destroyed the combine like him since McKinnon, and
he's much bigger.
You can obviously tell what the difference is going to be between Barkley and McKinnon is.
Yeah, he's so much bigger, and he's explosive. He's got good hands. He can run between the tackles. He can run outside. There's nothing you can't do, which is why the 101 everywhere is going for a giant ransom right now.
I saw somewhere that in a startup dynasty draft, Barkley went 101.
I saw that too.
The hype. Okay, first off, the hype's gotten a little out of control.
Yep.
We all can agree with that.
Yeah,
he hasn't put a snap in NFL yet, and he's
still an unproven commodity.
So if you have the 101 pick,
I would be trying to
just see what you can get for it.
Yeah, so see if you can get a ransom like I've seen paid in certain leagues, where I've seen like 2 blue chip players and a high pick getting traded.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Anyway, I don't know that we can talk a whole lot about Barkley.
No,
there's not going to be anything. There's not many conversation points there. It's
only other things I can really add is he's the best prospect I've ever seen, and I do not have a player comp for him. He is.
Yeah,
I've never seen another player like him.
They say LT, but LT didn't do this at the combine.
No, he's a better prospect coming out than LT.
It's insane. Yeah.
And if he'd gone number 1 overall to the Browns, I don't think they're going to do that now, but I wouldn't have blamed him.
I wouldn't have either.
I'd be almost expected.
Okay, on to tier 2. This is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. We have Darius Geis coming in at number 2 overall, and he comes in at an 8.1. I gave him a grade of 8.0, so I was real close to you guys on that. Loved his speed, loved his vision, a lot of strength, especially in his legs. He keeps his legs churning through contact. Only concerns I really have for him is blocking and pass catching chops. So it's how well is he going to mold into the modern NFL? Mm-hmm. His combine drills, he looks like a solid catcher there. It just wasn't in his college game.
It wasn't. He did and that's LSU, and he did have over 100 yards receiving the last 2 seasons. So he flashed that he has that ability to do it as a pass catcher. He was productive even when Fournette was there. 1,500 scrimmage yards, 7.6 yards per carry. Fournette's senior season. Part of that was Fournette being hurt, but career 6.5 yards per carry in the SEC. Balanced speed, power, extremely fluid runner. Doesn't give up a ton of speed. Like you said, he grinds out yards, pushes piles. The only thing I kind of had to say about it is that occasionally there is a cutback lane. I feel like he misses, and his game speed looks a little bit slower than his combine speed, but he's not slow.
No,
he's quick.
I mean, he looks like a guy who runs about a 4.5.
He maintains his bursts. He actually, I mean, I think he ran faster at his combine than I saw on tape.
That's what I was saying.
But
I
that's
think
what
he
he
was
was
faster
saying.
at the combine than he was on tape, but he was still not, running in quicksand.
He's not a terrible pass blocker. He does show great qualities on tape. He's just not consistent with it. It's something that's very common with a lot of rookie running backs, especially ones that are of this caliber where you don't necessarily want them to block all the time. In terms of pass catching, though, there's been a lot of talk about this. Our guys 2 through 6 all have pass, outside of John Kelly, all have this pass catching, will they, won't they, in this draft. And that's kind of where this starts. He did play receiver in high school in an all-star game that I've seen thrown out there a bajillion times.
Yeah.
And people are like, you played receiver. It's like that in high school. Okay, that's fucking 8 years ago.
Well, and the fact that he did a little bit and what
7 years ago.
And what I did see
Longer ago.
It was after his senior year of high school. So it was like
Yeah.
the All-Star game
4
after
years
he
ago.
graduated. Yeah.
Math is hard.
Not to mention he saved a woman's life, so he checks all the boxes. He's a very safe guy at the 102.
He's a great story. Like if you haven't read his story, it's very tragic. And a big fuck you to the asshole who asked if he was gay at the combine.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, that's NFL teams being weird.
Yep.
I would wish they would stop that bullshit. But yeah, I think Geist is going to end up as the consensus 102. I think he ends up sneaking into the first round of the NFL draft, and that'll solidify him there.
I think it's almost for certain. I think he's going. I've seen him as high as like 13 to Washington. I've seen him as low as pick 32 to the Eagles. So I think he goes day one. I think him and Barkley are the for sure day one.
Yeah, and then I think that'll lock him into 102 with him being the other first rounder.
Yep.
There's probably two other players you could argue being with the 102, but most likely they're going to fall to 103 to 105 range. First up for that is Nick Chubb, comes in at 7.9 overall. I also gave him a grade of 8. I liked how he looked. I think he was the best pure, classic running back in this draft between the tackles. He lacks some of the more modern NFL traits, but if you're just looking for a pure 2-down runner with some potential to be a 3-down guy, he looked amazing on tape.
Like if this was a 95, he'd be
Yeah,
the
if this was-
101 with a fucking.
If this was
punch card.
95, he would be 101.
Athletically, he matched Barkley everywhere but his 40 time, essentially. And I have a stat that may interest only me on this. So players with 4,500 plus rush yards in their college career on less than 800 carries. Darren McFadden, Kareem Hunt, Melvin Gordon, and then a guy we'll talk about in Wednesday's episode, Larry Rose III. That's it. So
He's impressive, and he would have done even more if he didn't get hurt.
yeah, he would have. And every other season besides the one he got hurt in, he carried the ball 200 plus times. So there's no real concerns with workload. He looked like he was fully recovered from that knee injury this past season. He runs strong. He can move piles, push off defenders. He really asserts himself. Kind of something I wish Barkley would do. That's one quality I saw in Chubb that I didn't necessarily see in Barkley is he asserts his size.
Yeah, I mean he's got like him and Michel probably have the best vision in the draft. In terms of these guys are very patient runners, wait for their blockers to open up, but they also have enough smarts and enough wit in their running where if they see a cutback lane, they'll hit it and they'll do it subtly. Yeah.
Well, and
it's impressive what he can do.
And that's another point on Chubb. Chubb was hitting 200 plus touches in a backfield with another NFL caliber back.
Yes.
And he was, I mean, like during his freshman year when it was with with Todd Gurley when he got hurt. Leonard Fournette, the 101 last year, or I guess 104 in the draft, said that he was the best running back that freshman year, and this was the same year with Michel, and the same year with Fournette, as we just talked about. Chubb was probably the best back coming out of that freshman season
Before he just completely
before he destroyed his knee. Like
Yeah.
he is by and far an unbelievable runner. It's just the pass catching and the fact that I've heard notes on Twitter saying that he's not as comfortable catching the football.
Heard notes on Twitter.
Heard notes on Twitter that came out weird.
Audio.
Saw on Twitter that he just doesn't look as comfortable out of the backfield catching the football.
And it may be something that comes along later. He's
Exactly.
only had 31 career receptions. So, and it's not something that when I looked at his numbers and Michel's, it's just kind of like LSU. Georgia just didn't throw to those two running backs.
They really like freshman running backs as their pass catching backs.
But the only other thing I noticed that I saw on tape that was kind of a negative is occasionally when he hits a really tough defensive front or quicker edge rushers, he can be beat to the edge.
You got to see the true difference between him and Michel in their game against Oklahoma and then their their game against Alabama.
They're just different
the
style
championship.
backs. Yeah.
Exactly. You got to see why they fit so well together.
Yeah, and then for comp for him, I saw a lot of Adrian Peterson in his game where it's 2 down. You didn't?
I mean, we're also trying to comp Adrian Peterson. I mean, Peterson ran harder than anyone I've ever seen in my entire life.
Chubb still runs really hard,
Yeah,
though.
he runs. I'm not saying it's a perfect match, but I saw a lot of similarities in their game.
I like the Melvin Gordon comp a lot for him.
I got another player I comp to Gordon, so
Yeah, it's a kind of a AP light type thing, but strong between the tackles runner with speed, explosiveness, runs violently. Nobody's going to run as violent as AP, but it's a very light comp, and he's another guy that I think you can probably draft with confidence in those first 5 picks that he's not going to bust.
I just want to see where he lands because I think if you can land on a team that doesn't really have a traditional pass catching back, you could see what Fournette did with the Jags last year, and you may be able to see that with a guy like Chubb, where he may not be a natural pass catcher, but you can still get 40 receptions as not being one, as we just saw with Fournette this year. He's on pace for it.
Yeah, and I'd love to see him get 30 to 40 catches a year because if he can end up just being slightly better than Jordan Howard at catching, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because
that's right.
So you're looking at a potential future top 10 fantasy back, possibly.
Yeah.
Based on the skill set.
All right, let's jump down to tier 3. This was guys who dropped at least. Whenever I had a jump of at least 0.2 between guys, and these guys start getting real bunched together, is when I did a tier break.
Yep.
So this up next at the top of tier 3 of Sony Michel. He's often fighting with Chubb for that number 3 overall spot. We had him as a grade of 7.7, so that's a very, very good player, but not quite elite. What'd you guys think of Sony Michel? I know, Dan, you're the biggest fan.
For me, it's he got better. Just as the season went along, he was obviously very good. He has a great nose for the end zone, and he did extremely well when he came in and worked with Chubb. For me, is I see him as a true 3-down back. I already see the pass catching upside. In his sophomore and junior year, he had over 25 receptions apiece. Then Georgia went and Georgia themselves and stopped using him in that game. Some will knock him on his speed because he had a pretty bad combine. I believe it was a game against Oklahoma where he showcased an extreme amount of lateral quickness and was able to set the edge, get around it, and then score. He's got great vision, just like Chubb does, and he's probably the best pass blocking running back in this draft. I think he is.
There's a few guys I definitely graded better. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
But either way,
I find the pass catching thing almost amusing. He had 26 receptions his sophomore year, 7 his freshman year, 22 his junior year, and 9 his senior year. 64 career receptions. So in college, that's decent, and those numbers are kind of why I find it amusing, because he had one season over 25 receptions. But that's what I hear people say a lot is, well, Sony Michel's a good pass catcher. He did flash those skills on tape. I'm not taking that away from him, but it's not something he was, like some of the other guys were necessarily consistently asked to do. But again, 64 is an okay number coming out of college. It's not like the NFL where you've got backs that are catching, 50, 60 balls a year. It's a completely different game.
Yeah.
He did only have one season over 200 touches. That's a little concerning to me if he's asked to be a 3-down back, just because he's not used to that. That was the year that Chubb got hurt.
Yep.
And then some other negatives, because you hit on most of the positives. So it's going to sound like I'm being a negative Nancy, but he's got good acceleration with some twitch. He's a solid route runner, but he's not your strength back, so he's not necessarily great when he gets stacked up at the line. He'll get brought down in the open field with some shoestring tackles. Doesn't break a whole lot of them, and he occasionally whiffs on his blocks. So not as bad as some other guys in this draft, there is a little bit more cause for pause with Michel than there is for guys like Chubb or Geis, in my opinion.
And he's also coming to the NFL older.
Mm-hmm.
He's already 23. And then he also, I didn't see a ton of strength on his film, which worries me as well.
I actually bumped him down behind a couple guys that we're going to get to.
All right. And then actually, anything else on Michel here? He looks like he's probably fighting for the 103. Yeah. He'll probably be the lowest. It's probably 105 in most rookie drafts.
That's where I've got him.
Anything else on him before we move on?
No.
All right. Let's hit a beer review. I should have done that after tier 2.
Oh, wow. Already? We're moving quick.
Beer review.
So what did you guys think of the ultra collaboration of Ground Score with Relix, Kyle Hollingsworth, and Sweetwater?
Like a lot of IPAs, it's a very solid IPA. It's really hard to differentiate.
Thanks, Dan.
A lot of them, yeah. But I mean, it's got, again, just kind of that kind of West Coast New England taste. It's juicy, it's citrusy, and it's a bit hoppy. It doesn't smack you in the face with hops, but it's definitely bitter on the back end.
Yeah, it's almost kind of a bright hop flavor, I'd say, where it's not super strong, but you definitely get there's some hops.
It's not harsh, but it's there.
But yeah, very drinkable. Would be a great summer beer. So weather in Illinois here, could you warm up a little bit?
The can art's awesome.
Can art is great. I think almost all of Sweetwater's can art's amazing that I've seen.
I need to get a better camera. It's blurry on the table.
Oh,
I thought about walking up there and just holding it in front of the camera.
I mean, we can always take a picture and
Yeah,
that as the intro. And
yeah. Who's administering the Instagram?
that'd be me.
get on that Instagram
Who
marketing
fails
guy.
at it?
Just
That'd be
saying,
me.
can art was one of the requested items in our end of season survey last year.
Thank you for anyone who's watching who did fill in the end of season survey. We do appreciate that.
Yep, more stuff coming down the pipe for you.
So yeah, I am going to try to check out the magazine Relix and also Kyle Hollingsworth and check out the album just so I can try to pair all three of those together. But overall, fantastic IPA style. If you're just looking for if you just really got that IPA itch and need another one to try, this would be another one to add to your list. All right. Anything else before we move on to the last backs here?
No, let's move on to these last backs. I'm pumped about this. I like these
All right.
conversations.
Oh yeah.
This is where stuff should start getting interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Up next, we've got Ronald Jones, comes in at 7.6 overall, and I think that's mostly my fault for pulling him up because I don't think you two are nearly as high on him.
No, I've come down a lot on it.
I came down on him, too. He's 6 for me?
Yeah,
7? No, he's 7.
8 or something.
I've got
He's
him.
7.
I've got him as my 4. What do you guys dislike about Jones? 'Cause, I mean, he's still a top 9 back in this class. I mean, he's still very good. But
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there.
He's extremely explosive, but when you look at his size, he lines up more in size with the tier of pass-catching backs in Tier 4 than he does with what you're going to have kind of up top. As far as scat backs go, he's agile, but he does it more with with quick twitch and angles. He's not like Cohen styles of shifty or anything like that. He's got better vision. He's good at setting up his blockers. And I have some fears about him being able to translate that into being a true 3-down back. As far as the smaller backs go, there's no doubt he's the most explosive. He's got the best playmaking ability in the draft. Not taking that away from him at all. His vision's great. The way he operates in the open field is fantastic. I just have some concerns about him actually being able to be kind of like I did with McCaffrey last year, a traditional 3-down back.
Yeah, because he's undersized. I mean, what is a good size you guys think? For 5'11", you want to be what?
215. That's what Lynch.
at
That's what
the-
Lynch is.
at like-
215
at
would be
the
about
smallest?
the smallest
Yeah.
for ideal size.
Yeah, so like in these 6 backs from Gaius all the way down to I think Freeman is
They're all
ish,
over
and then-
220.
Yeah, they're all besides Michel, they're all perfect size for
and,
that.
And Michelle's 216.
Yeah.
So he's on the
the fringe
end
of that. Jones would need to add 10 more pounds to even get to that level. And I know I hate bringing up. I hate having to keep bringing up pass catching, but really used, especially this year. And that's been the biggest talking point with him, and is that he doesn't have the size as a traditional 3-down back, where he's going to probably be drafted as one, or at least close to it. And he doesn't have, or at least doesn't show that true pass catching chops. Now, he models his game after Jamal Charles, which I've been reminded, plenty that Jamal Charles wasn't a pass catching back in college, and he translated that once he got, drafted by the Chiefs. That's by one team in one system that molded their team around that. Whereas if Jones, we don't know if that's going to be the case, and he doesn't have the size to be a true 3-down back right now. He could be though.
I will say this as far as running up the middle, though. He did show that he could do it. He wasn't using the passing game a lot. He still had over 1,000 scrimmage yards in 3 seasons, which was mostly running. So he did show that he can run up the middle, at least in college. And he does run a little bit bigger than what...
Oh, yeah.
He runs a lot
built.
bigger for his size. Now, that could also hurt him in terms of his durability because he's still 205 pounds.
And that's the other reason I dropped him down a little bit, because he has been dealing with a hamstring injury since. I mean, he still didn't run at his pro day from that hamstring he tweaked in the combine, and
that was about 3.5 weeks. That's reasonable for hamstring pop.
Well, he apparently originally injured it in November though.
Okay.
And then re-injured it at the combine. So you hope that that's not a sign of things to come. I'm not going to ever dock anybody majorly because of injury, but that was the other pause for concern with me. It was how well is what he was able to do in college going to translate.
And I completely agree with a lot of your guys' concerns. The reason I graded him so high is the things he is elite at, he is top in this class. I think on tape he was the fastest player that I saw. I thought he looked faster than Hines or Barkley on tape.
He did.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close. I mean,
It was definitely
once
close.
you get to that point where it's like Hines will never. I mean, it's hard to show a sub 4.4 on tape.
No, it is, and he was, and that's why I'd have him rated up here instead of down with the other guys that are his size. That's why he's a top 6 back for me, is because, like you said, what he does well, he does elite. He sets up blocks well. He's great in space.
Yep, he's. His accelerate. He looks like he's shot out of a goddamn cannon when he gets the ball. So if a team can scheme for him and set him up properly, he's probably the only sub 210 pound back in this class that I could see turning into a true 3-down.
He could be, yeah.
Yep.
So
I agree with you there.
And just for that, his ceiling may be the highest of all the non-Barkley backs.
I've got a guy that I rated it 4 that I think has a higher ceiling based on college productivity and matchups and stuff like that.
I know who you're talking about. I actually view him as more of a floor play, but okay.
You you add a passing game to a guy like Chubb or Geis who already has the size to be a true down back. Like you don't. I mean, obviously his speed. Jones' speed is phenomenal. It is. I know Geis and Chubb aren't as fast, but you've seen productive backs who don't have blazing speed. I mean, Kamara ran a 4.56 at the combine, and we saw what a balance through contact can do to a player and can add to those longer runs where you don't obviously need to just be able to juke the guy out of their shoes.
But Jones also shows amazing balance too.
He does. It's just, will he be able to get the grinder yards out?
Landing spot is big for him.
And that's my concern with him. I do agree. Not that his upside's the second best, but I think his upside is top 5 in this draft.
Oh, that's without question. Yeah,
I agree
for sure.
Yeah, just for me, there was just something watching his tape that I got that little like tingling in the.
I got
back of my
excited
head.
when I watched his tape. Originally, and then I went down, I listened to other people's podcasts, guys that I trust a lot in this process, and I was able to.
Mine was just from watching his tape. It wasn't listening to anybody else or anything like that. It was just from watching his tape and then, looking at how it was used and looking at the metrics and everything. And it's just it's not that I don't like him. There's just other guys that I like more as far as how they project at the NFL.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for me, this may be a complete gut call, but there was just something about his tape that I'm like, he's my 4 behind the.
Well, you have
behind
good
the big
gut
3.
calls as we saw last year. So.
Well, and it is, and you have a history of 1, like Dan said, having gut calls like last year, but 2, being attracted to this type of back. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we get to the show crush of the year? All right. This is going to be universal praise on this one. John Kelly, running back out of Tennessee. Name we really didn't know very much about before we started getting into the tape, and then you two started going nuts about him, and I watched the tape and went, he's the show crush.
I gave all the praise to Elliot Chris. I like listening to other people's shows because this is where I can get names and listening to Loaded Box. Shout out to great show friends of ours. Had Elliot Chris on, a great draft guy. Absolutely loves John Kelly. I listen to other people bring him up. I'm like, I have to watch this guy's fucking tape. I watched it and I immediately text you guys. I'm like, yeah, John fucking Kelly's the dude. He's the fucking guy.
And he's starting to get hyped up as a possible day 2
should
pick now.
I faded him slightly just based on I dropped him 0.2 of a point. It moved him down 6 spots. But I faded him slightly just based on college productivity and how it was used there, because he really had one season where he started, I think his average was something like 4.3 or 4.4 yards a carry. He was playing for Tennessee, though. And
Which was an absolute dumpster fire.
It was, and there's nothing not to like on tape. He's got great balance. He's a violent runner. As far as his build, he's built chalk like Kamara with a slightly faster 40, but same bench reps. It's a lazy comparison because they were both Tennessee backs, but that's what he is.
Yep.
But He's not afraid to make like dynamite and blow his own hole open in the line if needed. He's got plus vision. He uses it to find cutbacks for extra yardage.
Great pass catcher.
Great pass catcher. His cuts are crisp, which is part balance and just part of his ability to maintain speed in and out of them. The only knocks I had on him were, like I already mentioned, his lack of work and his production numbers were a little bit lower, but he started one season and it was with Tennessee.
Yep.
So his ranking is the highest of anybody where I'm ranking based on just tape almost exclusively.
He does have a slight off-field issue. He did get busted smoking pot.
Oh, no way.
Oh, no.
I put that down and
God.
go, really? It's fucking weed.
Not the devil's lettuce.
Hey, NFL still cares about it even
I know.
if we don't.
But that was he did also have the backup Kamara last year. So
Yeah. And his top end speed, it wasn't generally game breaking, but it was definitely game bending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you just want to have some fun for a guy that I don't think is getting hyped enough, just go watch his tape.
Go watch John Kelly.
There's a reason he is solidly in our top 9.
And I'll shout out the franchise Tyler Geese podcast. They had him on.
That's F3.
F3. Their podcast had him on for their interview. I can't fall in love with him even more.
I'm gonna own.
I'm gonna try to own him as much as I can.
Yeah, I'm gonna have Kamara and Kelly, and I think
And
all my
please,
dynasty leagues.
and please, Kelly, land a team that needs a running back because I called them out while I'm watching this tape. I called them as this year's cream hunt. If he can land in a spot where he can either take the spot because he's better than the backs there, or because of injury. Because we were hyping up Hunt as being the guy who's going to supplant Ware at some point pre-injury. Kelly has that ability by far.
Yeah, I liked his tape more than I liked Hunt's last year.
Exactly.
Denver.
Or Tampa Bay.
Denver.
You just hate C.J. Anderson.
I do hate CJ
Or
Anderson.
the Colts, anywhere.
Yep.
All right, let's go on to Rashad Penny, who's another controversial guy here.
Yeah.
He comes in at a 7.5 overall. I give him a slight ding on that at 7.4. I just have a couple concerns about his game. So let's go through the positives first. Great speed, size, and acceleration. He is
He's one of the better pure runners in this class. He is very good, and he's built for it.
He had good balance in his cuts. He doesn't get brought down with arm tackles. He's the only player at least in pro football or college football references database to carry the rock 280 plus times in a season and average over 7 yards a carry.
He's unbelievable.
He was getting downfield over and over and over again. I just saw, I think every game I saw at least 2 or 3 20-yard plus runs. Part of that was due to level of competition that San Diego State was playing.
Which is a knock you give him there.
It's true.
It is.
And that's why he didn't blow up because of this. But he's also tied for first in career games over 150 yards with 9. The others are Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, and Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith.
Two of those three were pretty good.
I've heard that name somewhere.
He was the Lions running back.
Yeah, I know. It's just like Kevin fucking Smith.
That was who was the other running back they had at that same time? Blanking right now.
I don't remember.
I don't even remember.
I don't want to try to remember. Anyway.
So some knocks on him. When we had Mitchell Wrench on the show on our combine, he did bring up he runs a little too high.
He's got that Derrick Henry problem.
Yeah,
he does.
And we mentioned why that's the problem. Exposes your ribs area. Little
Ty
more.
Montgomery.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. He's got one season over 250 touches and doing that also. So
Yeah, he was behind Pumphrey before this.
he sure was. But the other thing I noticed that I think running upright causes him though is his pad level's high, and
he can't break tackles.
He can't break
drive as
tackles for
hard.
anything because he can't drive as hard because he runs so upright. He's not getting lower than other people, and he's just okay as a receiver. He wasn't really used in that regard, but just a couple knocks on him. But the production on the ground is fantastic.
He was also a pretty terrible blocker.
He is a horrible blocker.
Yes, I had that down.
It is bad.
I had that down also, but I'm trying to not repeat that every play.
No, he was like notably
But
bad.
this is
Notably
like the top backs. This guy's being like, I've seen people project him at the 102. I've seen him mostly at at the 104, right behind Geis and Chubb, and obviously Barkley. This is where the Jones versus Penny, true convo starts. Is that they both,
Yeah,
That's why there's somebody I like more than both of them.
Yes,
I believe that will be the next player we get to
that
here.
is the next guy.
But yeah, only other thing I want to say on Penny is actually I'm really happy that Gordon comes up as a comp for him.
That too,
Because my comparison for him was poor man's Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. And he'll land someplace and he'll have a chance, but I think that they're going to have to try to coach him to drop that pad level and run a little bit lower.
Yeah, and he has to be a better
Or try
blocker.
to. And he's got to be a better blocker to stay on the field on third down.
Yep, because depending on where he lands, too, he could be blocked, and then we may not know anything about him, in the NFL until a couple of years.
Well, and the other thing with him, too, is his hype is absolutely through the roof, so I probably won't own him anywhere.
No, I'm not expecting
Because
him anywhere.
He's getting hyped up is, the number 3 in some is the highest I've
103
seen
is
him.
the
103 to
highest
105.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I think that he more belongs in that 105 to like 108 range, 109.
I
so
completely agree.
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
He's my second lowest that we're talking about on this first episode.
Mm-hmm.
The guy I like better, and you also heavily agree with me on this one,
Yes, I do.
Royce Freeman comes in at 7.4 overall. If I was to pick a safer back you can get at the back end of round 1 of rookie drafts, he would 100% be my guy. But Hopper, you mentioned that you think his ceiling might be higher.
Yeah, and I have a couple reasons for that. First off, he had a great combine. When you watch his tape, you thought he was a little bit lumbering, but then he comes out, he runs a 4.54 40, which is solid for a back that's 5'11 and 230 pounds. Does a 6.9 3-cone and a 4.16 20-yard shuttle, which just shows excellent burst.
And his vertical, broad jump, everything was good.
Everything was fantastic. Then I looked at his player profiler comps. Steven Jackson and Le'Veon Bell, which Le'Veon Bell, because of how patient he looked and just his skill set, on tape, he looked like a poor man's Le'Veon Bell. Again, maybe a little bit lazy comparison, but athletically, they profile pretty similar.
They're similar builds. Freeman's also a good pass catcher. He's very patient runner.
He was the only good thing about the Oregon offense
This last year especially.
last 2 years at
was.
least.
So I tweeted this out. I tweeted this out yesterday, but I love this stat. I absolutely love the stat. He's one of 2 college players that had 5,500 plus rush yards and over 800 receiving yards in his career. The other one's Donnell Pumphrey, but Donnell Pumphrey's 5'8", 176 pounds, whereas Royce Freeman is 5'11", 230. So his big back that's producing like a tiny back, at least as far as passing goes. But size, vision, agility, it's there. He doesn't look necessarily fast on tape, but he finds a way to be productive. Again, another Bell trait.
Yeah, he never struck me as fast, but when you watch Le'Veon Bell, he never really looks that fast either.
No, because he's super patient.
Yeah,
he has that burst where he can get to his near top end speed immediately.
Derrick Henry does that too. Not the burst, but he just looks slow, and then all of a sudden he picked up 10 yards, and I have no idea how.
Like one lawn step.
Yeah, you're
what
like
the fuck, man.
You're like,
What
man,
did you just do?
man, Henry looks slow, and he just ran for a 40-yard touchdown. Okay.
Yeah, how did that happen?
there's a lot of pros. Obviously, I don't have a lot of cons on him. I think the biggest one though is going to be his durability. He had a shit ton of touches in college,
Yeah.
and people will look at that and be like, well,
He's
he's a bigger back, unlike Pumphrey, where
He's got some wear on the tires.
he is.
Yes, to use the phrase correctly
Yeah.
for once.
Yeah.
I used it. That's why it was correct. He's got some wear on
Whatever,
the tires. But you know what? He did it without really getting hurt, though. I don't think he ever missed a game from
No?
looking at it.
No.
So
And there are players who can have unbelievably high number of touches
Yeah.
and be fine. It's not
People-
normal, but
People also ask because his best year was his sophomore year, where he was looking like the best back out of this entire class.
the team around him was better, though, too.
Yeah, and that's where it's going to be. That's why you watch multiple years of tape. That's why you want to understand. Okay, what happened? Was it injury? Was it, was it him? Was it the offense? Was it the scheme?
Look at the players around
Yeah,
him. Who went
exactly.
to the NFL? What type of talent did he have around him?
I thought about moving him up, but I didn't want to piss Nick off. I think I will move him up. But again, we're gonna keep beating the dead horse with the same comparisons, but it's just where he lands.
Yeah.
Because it's a very this year, especially this year, we had 6 running backs last year who were considered RB1s now with their offense.
Yep. Well, every landing spot matters.
Yeah,
So where he lands it literally applies to everybody.
yeah,
So
and just with the added depth from last year's draft, there's just not a lot of teams that need true RB1s. I mean, there's but
some of them.
yeah.
And you look at some of these crowded backfields, all it takes is one guy that can come in and do everything. And all of a
Exactly.
sudden, everybody else is out of the picture.
Then with injury and things like that,
Freeman's a guy I would love in, a place like maybe Seattle. where there's just a bunch of shit at the wall that hasn't
Dude
stuck
actually
yet.
do really well in Seattle with Wilson. The issue is his offensive line. Mm-hmm. He can create for himself, but that's not a strength of his game.
He can work in space though too.
Yeah.
For as big as he is, and that's a good thing. He doesn't like Barkley. He kind of doesn't run as violently as his size should allow him to. He does lack top level explosiveness. And one thing I noticed at him in pass blocking, he's not a terrible pass blocker, but on that initial contact, he usually gets knocked back a step or two before he hits into his base. So he doesn't
that's mostly-
stonewall people.
That's mostly technique too. Guys who keep their head down and not look at the guy. Like you can see, like in 2 years of watching tape, I can finally tell of a good pass blocker and a bad pass blocker just based on their technique.
Yep.
Yeah, he's just got a lot of great traits. He's definitely outside of vision. I didn't have an elite trait pegged on him. That was the only one I did.
No,
but he wasn't bad anywhere.
No, and his combine numbers, his agility, and his burst numbers were a lot better than they looked on tape.
Agreed, and that may be the vision is hiding that to where he doesn't have to pull those out necessarily. So I'm not. He was a tough player to read for me, but I liked enough of his tape to recommend him as a sure.
He is a
pick.
first round pick. I think there's a lot of value because he's getting taken after guys like Penny and Jones and shit like Jones. Not as much because Jones is now falling on hard times here in terms of draft Twitter, but
Yeah, he is
Freeman's still a good value.
really
pick.
good value. If there's a reason I may try to move back up into the first round in your league, it's him.
You probably got to jump 110 to
You
try.
You probably gotta
I'm gonna have to
you
try.
gotta ask the guy who probably has all of our fucking picks in my league too.
I do. Because I'm at 204 right now, and that ain't going to get it done.
No.
All right. One last guy we're going to talk about in this third tier, and I do feel like there's still a gap here between Freeman and this guy, but he's still good
I
enough.
agree with the gap.
But he will still. I think he's still going to sneak into the first round of most rookie drafts. So I wanted to talk about him, and that is Kerryon Johnson, 7.3 overall grade. My grade matched that to the T. He's a fantastic pass catching back, great vision. He's good running between the tackles. The major issues with him, though, is I didn't see any major elite athletic traits, and then he also has some injury concerns.
He does have some injury concerns. He's missed time with some nicks and stuff like that. I don't think he's ever had anything too major, but strains and sprains and things have caused him to miss some time. Last 2 seasons, though, he's dead even at 5.1 yards per play, so that's passing and running. But he had over 100 more plays this year, so his efficiency's been consistent. He's built pretty much like Sony Michel. Very smooth runner. Uses ball line behind cuts to find the hole, which I've only ever really seen a handful of backs that look really, really good and smooth at doing this. And it's kind of that Matt Forte type of thing when he was in his prime, or what we saw from Mixon that we liked, to where they will... it's almost like they can get to the line and still make cuts to get to a hole. And it's not your typical dancing in the backfield. They're still moving forward, but they can adjust on the fly. It's one of those things you kind of have to see. And when you see it, you just know it's there. But his speed's good enough to pick up yardage. He runs with a good base and balance. I mean, he's just kind of like... He's almost poor man's Sony Michel in this draft.
Yeah,
Or Sony Michel with injury concerns.
Yeah.
it was his one productive year was this year, and he was plagued with durability issues. I also got this on just PerInfo.com's draft thing for him. Like Rashad Penny, he runs upright. I think he runs probably harder than Penny, and they made a note saying because of this, of his upright running, he runs with such power. There is some durability concerns, as we just saw with his last year with Auburn. I do love his talent. It's just whether or not he can stay healthy.
Yeah, and the player comp I actually gave, partially due to injury concerns, was Jay Ajayi.
Yeah, he's faster than Ajayi, though, isn't he?
Pretty close.
Ajayi looks looks slow at times.
Yeah, he's another guy who somehow still takes off 30
I know,
runs.
it's great. I love Ajayi.
So yeah, he's a player. He's kind of the first one on this list that it's like, I don't quite love him, but he's still obviously a very good talent.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So he's the last one we have that we're going to cover on this episode. Just to kind of put a bow on it, what do you guys think of these top 9 backs overall?
So I think that Ronald Jones is kind of your biggest upside play here. RoJo is. I think that Kerryon Johnson is kind of your biggest risk play here. And I think everybody else we talked about is pretty relatively safe as a first round pick, where you're at least going to get at some point within the first 2 to 3 years of their career running back to production ish.
Yeah, I go with with Jones and Michel as I won't say potential of the bigger bust. You can also put Penny in there, but like I said, landing spot. Like it's hard for me to be like, I don't know who to do. I want to see where they land. I know I keep driving that home.
You're going to do that way more next episode. Let's just save a few of those.
Yeah, just save the landing spot stuff because it matters for everybody. You're right now. It's talent grades, and that's what we're talking about people on, is just based on talent alone. If they were, what's their upside? What are they good at? What are they not good at? What role do they project as? And most of these guys project as, potential three down backs. A couple of them have some holes that they need to fill up, but they're small. Also phrasing.
All very much
pro
phrasing.
phrasing.
We're a pro phrasing show.
And then just kind of a comparison. Compared to probably the top 8 to 10 backs in last year's draft versus this one, which one did you prefer?
This year's is deeper.
Last year's was great, but this year's is, there's a lot more potential in this year's draft.
You get Barkley. I think Geis could have even taken over the 101 last year, and even Chubb could have been.
I think Geis and Fournette would have been real close last year.
So
I think Geis has more. I know that Fournette was the starter at LSU, but I think Geis's skill set is a little bit more well-rounded than Fournette's was.
Yeah. He's a little bit less of a freak athlete, but
Yeah.
more polished runner, I'd say.
He's a more polished runner. He's a little bit more agile, and I think that overall he's a little bit more adept as a pass catcher based on what I saw.
Yeah, and then coming out of the class, Barkley's obviously would be the 101 between the two, right?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Barkley the 101, and like the class was Zeke, and like
he's better than Zeke.
I think every year, I don't know, maybe luck.
Maybe in a super flex.
In a super flex. I don't know when Barkley wouldn't be considered the 101.
I don't remember the last running back that we had.
1997, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 2007 with AP.
Or 2007, that's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah. 1997. He's been in the league for a while. There's a lot of tread left on those tires.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's it for the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 backs. That's the top 9. We think probably all 9 of those will go in most first 12 round for the first 12 picks of rookie drafts.
Yeah, I think that they will too, especially because the wide receiver class is so thin that there's only 2 or 3 guys that I think go in the first round from that wide receiver class.
I think Johnson's the first one that I can see go like 201, 202.
Yeah, he's the one. He's the one who might.
It depends on setting, and then
he's
guys
right on that fringe.
Yeah, you get more Sutton and Ridley.
Yeah, the other 8.
Hey, does it depend on landing spot?
It always depends on landing spot.
Is that the replacement for versatility this year?
No, versatility.
No,
Versatility will show up at some point.
I'm surprised it hasn't yet.
Probably next episode.
There's at least it might. I don't know. There's nobody I really put a versatility tag on until the 3rd episode, so a week from today.
Okay, well, look out for that once we get to
I know who that is.
the cleanup episode. Well, thank you so much for checking us out, guys. Just to kind of put a quick wrap on this you can watch the video on YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football there. For Twitter, we are at BeerfieldFF, up in the left-hand corner, I believe, if Hopper's been telling me the right information.
Yep.
And individually, I'm at Nick Sparts.
At 30 BFF.
I was going to let you go second that time. I'm glad you picked up on that. At Hot BFF with 2 P's.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys
Next time
on Beerfield Fantasy Football.
See ya.
Later.